The title of this teaching is God Knows What You Did. And that's a good thing. And you'll learn why that's a good thing. But first, it's time to once again play Jeopardy! Your category is famous inventors. Famous inventors. You want to write down your wager? How much you think you're going to know the answer to this? The first clue is he invented the first automobile. Anybody want to?
Ford.
Ford. Henry Ford. Henry Ford. No, I'm sorry, but your answer is incorrect.
I knew it was a trap.
Harry Flintstone.
Huh?
Cheryl says Edison.
Not Edison, right?
No. He will come up in the next category, though. The actual inventor, the first one to have a road-powered vehicle, was a Frenchman named Nicolas Joseph Cugnot. I'm sure I'm butchering that, Sherry. In 1769, he invented a steam-powered vehicle for the French army that went a blazing 2.5 miles per hour.
Wow.
Now, the first internal combustion engine was actually invented by Carl Friedrich Benz, Mercedes-Benz, you've heard of them, and that was in 1885. The first electric vehicle, surprisingly, was not invented by Tesla. It was by Robert Anderson in 1832.
Wow.
So many people got there way ahead of Henry. Who do you think was the inventor of the electric light bulb?
Tesla.
Edison.
Edison. The rest of you are thinking that, but now you're saying, I'm not taking that bait. I know the way this guy plays. Well, you're wrong. I'm sorry. So the first one is credited to an Italian inventor, Alessandro Volta. I would guess that's where we get volt from, but I don't know. And he developed the first practical method of generating electricity. His glowing copper wire is officially considered a precursor to the battery, but it is also the earliest manifestation of incandescent lighting. Humphrey Davy in 1802 produced the first electric lamp, and in 1850, an English chemist, Joseph Swan, made a light bulb using paper filaments, and good old Thomas Edison just kind of improved on that remarkably. He actually ended up in business with Swan after first trying to sue him for copying his patent, and if he couldn't beat him, he joined him. All right, here's your final question, your final answer, and you give the question. The clue, the inventor of the computer. Who is the inventor of the computer? What do you think?
Gates.
Gates. Anybody else? Well, how about this one? Give me the decade you think it was invented in.
70s.
In the 1970s? What are you saying?
60s?
50s.
60s, 50s? How about 1822? Anybody going back that far? A man named Charles Babbage is often thought as the man who invented computers. Between 1822 and 1871, in fact, he designed 3 computers, but never actually constructed any of them due to lack of funding. But in 1991, the British Science Museum constructed the design from his original plans, and it worked. It took 6 years to build, weighs 5 short tons, measures roughly 7 feet by 12 feet, and has 8,000 parts.
Wow.
Not exactly a personal computer. What most people would probably, that even knew a little bit more, would probably, than you guys, would be ENIAC, Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, in 1945. So 1945 was like that first big monstrosity that if you watch old enough movies, you'll see. And how about this one, the first personal computer? Anybody still going to go with Gates or Jobs or Wozniak or any of those guys?
Gotta fall for that.
In 1973, the Micro N was the first personal computer, but it was not a commercial success. My point with all of these wasn't to try to make you look foolish because you didn't know these obscure facts, but rather to point out that history is famous for giving credit to the wrong person for what was done. And most people would remember somebody other than any of those people for the inventions that they were the first ones to do. Have you ever felt that happen to you? Somebody getting credit for something you did?
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I had a friend who would steal all my jokes shamelessly. But he would give me credit if it didn't get a laugh. If it got a laugh, it was his. If it didn't get a laugh, well, that was my past jokes. But it doesn't really bother me. I don't think it did that. There are many, many things that I have done in my lifetime. Some of them actually important, that very few people know about or ever will. And I am perfectly okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. You know, it's a funny thing because when I was in college, I learned in classes like psychology that the need for recognition is a basic need within man. The need for people to recognize what you do. And it seems that most people would agree with that. At least a quick bit of research on the web gave me these results. Here's the top 2 search results for the need for recognition in people. The first one comes from a website. This was your number 1 result, search result, and it comes from a website called exploringyourmind.com. And they have an article entitled, "The Need for Recognition, the Cornerstone of Self-Esteem." The cornerstone of self-esteem. Quoting from that, "We all need to be recognized. It's not a matter of pride, selfishness, or immaturity. Human beings from the earliest moments in their lives absolutely need respect and affection from everyone around them, which is where we implicitly find that sincere recognition toward us as people." What do you think of that?
Baloney.
Okay. The second result, top result, was entitled, "Why Needing Recognition is a Clear Sign of Emotional Immaturity." I'm not making that up. That's the first 2 results. Obviously, a different opinion. Quoting from that, "Recognition is a strategy that we all use to feel competent, to feel good enough. There's nothing wrong with giving a pat on the back, but as a society, we have come to rely upon it to prop up our self-esteem. If we need recognition from others to feel good, and we perceive that we don't get it, we get frustrated. This frustration can then lead to negative emotion, rebellion, and in some cases, ego-driven childishness." That's from HR Magazine. My guess is the HR stands for Human Resources. Now, we could keep looking through other results and see if we found any consensus or enough evidence to sway you one way or the other, whether that need for recognition is a good thing or a bad thing. We can see what more experts have to say, but instead, we'll turn to what the creator of man and life has to say about it. You can go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. So we're dealing here with man's need for recognition. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 6, it says, I have planted, Apollos watered, but who gave the increase? God. I planted, Apollos watered. I did part of the job, Apollos did another part of the job. We both worked, we both did something, but it was God that gave the increase. The really important part of that job was what God did. I can plant, you can water, but God's the only one that can give the increase. Verse 7, so then neither is he that planteth anything, neither he that watereth, but God that giveth the increase. He that plants is not any big deal. He that waters not any big deal. The big deal is God that gives the increase. It's God who is important. It's God who deserves all the glory. And people may do things seeking glory and seeking the praise and recognition of men, but it's not a right approach. It's not what God would really have us to do. Look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4. There's an old saying that I heard from a group called Joyful Noise. It doesn't matter who sings the song, but that the song gets sung. It's not important who's up there on the stage. What's important is that the song is sung. That the song is sung. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 5, for we preach not ourselves, but Christ Jesus the Lord, and ourselves are your servants for Jesus' sake. They weren't preaching themselves. They weren't putting themselves out there. They didn't make it all about them. It wasn't their opinion. It wasn't how great they were. Verse 6, but God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, hath shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of whom?
God.
And not of whom?
Us.
That the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. It's God who should get the glory. There's a wonderful study called The Counsel of the Lord, and I want to just read a couple of sentences from it. We covered this recently in one of our Thursday night fellowships. It's called The Counsel of the Lord from The Bible Tells Me So. And it says, one of the big questions always is, do our works glorify Him? Those who are walking in the Spirit will constantly keep glorifying God with their actions, while man's work will ever turn our thoughts to man and direct our attention to man's walk or to man's acts or to man's experiences. Man's work is always the end for those who glory in themselves. It is the Spirit's work which glorifies God and enables man to do God's work. The question we must continue to ask ourselves day by day is, does our walk glorify God? This is the one and only test we may apply. And it goes on. Great study. Do our works glorify God? Is He the one getting the glory? Is He the one getting the recognition? I shouldn't care, according to what we've read here, about getting the recognition. I should care about God getting the glory. And that nothing I do should be for the sake of drawing attention to myself, as we just read, but rather drawing attention to Him, who deserves all honor and respect and glory. Do it for God, not for men. And not only is that right, but God is the one who ultimately is keeping the score. He's the only one that can. You can do things and people not recognize what you do, or give the credit to the wrong person. And certainly if that's true of great inventions, I believe it's even more true when it comes to the great things that are done for God. But it doesn't matter, because God is keeping the score and he will be the one who ultimately recognizes and rewards. Look at Matthew chapter 6. People won't see it. People won't recognize it. And you'll find that time and time again. And if you're looking for that, you'll be frustrated. You'll be discouraged. If you're looking for the praise of men, you'll never get it, or you won't get enough of it. And so often people labor so hard for it to never be recognized. But if you're doing it for God, then know that he sees. In Matthew 6, we learn that that's a good thing. And the other approach is wrong. Verse 1. Take heed that ye do not your alms. Your alms are your acts of service before men to be seen of them. Otherwise, you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. So there's your choice. You can get the recognition of people and the praise. And if that's what you're doing well, then enjoy it. Enjoy it. Because that's all you've got to look forward to. You're not going to get rewarded for that in heaven. Therefore, verse 2, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. Don't sound the trumpet. Don't send out the press release. Don't put your name on the park bench. Don't put your name on the building. Don't make sure that in the program at the play that it has the Mike McNabb Foundation was our highest sponsor. Because if that's what you're doing it for, that's all you're going to get. Verse 3, but when thou doest alms, when you do service, let not the left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Isn't it ironic that that's come to be used always in a negative sense? The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Have you ever heard that phrase used in this manner?
Yeah.
Verse 4, that thine alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. Isn't that wonderful? And it goes on to use that same point in a couple of other situations about prayer. And when you pray, don't do it to be seen of men. And that's what the hypocrites would do. And the Pharisees, they'd make this long show of prayers that were so impressive, Oh, did you hear that wonderful prayer he did? It was so eloquent. It was so beautiful. Well, he wasn't praying to God. He was just impressing people with his beautiful speaking voice and his eloquence. Or when you fast, don't do it like the hypocrites for a big, sad countenance. All of these points being, do it for God. Do it for God. Look at chapter 3 of 1 Corinthians. We read the first couple of verses. Let's pick it up now in verse 8. Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one in purpose. The one that's planting, the one in watering, they're working together. And every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. For we are laborers together with God. Ye are God's husbandry, ye are God's building. According to the grace of God which is given unto me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. It goes on to talk about this process of building the body, building the church in the real sense, the church, the believers. And one does one job, somebody else does another job. The thing to recognize is that we are workers together with God. And that as we build, we need to be careful the way that we are building. That the things that we are doing are building upon that sheer foundation of Jesus Christ. That everything we do is built on the solid rock. Everything we do is not our own ideas, our own walk by the senses, but they were walking with God, giving glory to him. And it goes on, but we'll look at verse 14. It says, if any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. God will reward us for all the works that we do when they're done with love. When we're doing the works that he would have us to do, and we're doing it with the right motivation, that we're doing it for his glory, and with the heart of the love of God, then the promise is that every man will receive a reward. You see, if you believe that, then you don't have to worry about whether other people see it or not, whether they ever recognize it or not. It's the accomplishment that is important, not the credit. It's what you accomplish that's important. I always loved the plaque, some of you may know, that President Ronald Reagan had on his desk, both as a governor and as a president. And it said, there is no limit to what a man can do or where he can go if he doesn't mind who gets the credit. There's just no limit. There's no limit to where he can go and what he can do if he doesn't mind who gets the credit. Some people, what they care about is the credit. Others, the right attitude is getting the job done, getting the important things done, the accomplishment. Look at Hebrews chapter 6. You're free to live that way if you do believe that God does recognize what you do and that he will reward you. Then you're free to not be concerned about getting credit. You're free to just give and love and serve for the joy of it. In Hebrews chapter 6, it tells us that God is not unrighteous, verse 10. For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which you have showed toward his name, in that ye have ministered to the saints and do minister. God won't forget it. God's not unrighteous, okay? People may not give you the credit you deserve, but God will. He's not unrighteous to forget. He'll remember it. He'll remember that which you do in ministering to the saints, in helping others. The things that you do to serve, God sees, and that's why he is the only one that can really keep score. And if you're doing it for him, then you're always content. You're always content. You're always satisfied. You're willing to work harder than you would ever work for the praise of men when you're working for him. When you're working for God, when you're working for the Lord Jesus Christ, when you're not doing things for the sake of men or to be seen of men, then boy, you'll work harder than you ever would for any person and for any other reward on earth. When that's your real desire, that you're just doing it for God, because God is so good, because he loves you so much, because he's your Father, because pleasing him is the greatest joy that you can have. When you realize that, when you recognize that, boy, there's no limit to what you're willing to do. There's no limit. You'll pour yourself out. You'll work harder than anybody will for fame and fortune, for having their names in lights or the names on a building or people talking about them 100 years from now. And the best that any of them will get, is if they are remembered 100 or a couple hundred years from now. But God's rewards are for all of eternity. Verse 11 says, and we desire that every one of you do show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end. Looking towards that hope. Looking for that day, because that day is coming. That day is coming when we will stand on the bema. We'll stand on that judge's platform, not to be judged of whether what you did was good or bad and that you'll be rewarded or punished, but to be judged for the sake of being rewarded. That's what the judgment that we're going to be in front of. That judgment only for rewards. You know, I opened with the title, God Knows What You Did. And when I was a kid, boy, that was something I was very concerned about, because I was shown a picture of God, that God was watching. And boy, He knows what you did when you told that little white lie, or not so white. He knows what you did when you thought nobody was looking and you helped yourself to something you shouldn't have, or whatever the case might be. And that He saw that. God sees everything. You can't fool Him. And someday, boy, you're going to answer for that. You're going to answer for that. And if you get enough of those black marks against you, well, then you're going to be cooking your goose. But that's not what it means. God knows what you did is that God recognizes it. He sees it. He appreciates it. And He will reward it. God bless you.